Hi, I'm Matt Hill, T3 Deputy Editor, and I'm here with T3's gaming specialist, Nick Cowan, and we're here for the first of a monthly special on games, and we are talking about E3, and more importantly, PS4 versus Xbox One for this one. We were both at E3. We saw each other about 3 times for the whole week, and so we decided it's probably about time we got together for a bit of a chat and talked about what went on. So E3, obviously probably the most controversial, most hyped, most spectacular E3 ever.
And the easiest to call. I think it was the easiest E3 to call in the history of E3. And Sony smashed it, basically.
Microsoft conference was in the morning and was very good at the time. Everyone seemed pretty pleased with it. You know, they started with Metal Gear Solid 5. Everyone went mental.
Yeah.
They had some good indies there. They had some, the kind of good franchises. They had some new stuff. Sunset Overdrive looked fun. Forza 5 looks amazing. It was pretty strong, I thought. Everyone came out beaming. And then what happened later in the day? Well,
Sony just highlighted stuff that they weren't doing that Microsoft was, that was making everybody angry, and that was it.
I mean, I think this is probably the least spec-focused battle I've ever seen in consoles, because they are basically both high-end gaming PCs. You can argue over that on paper the PlayStation 4 is supposedly the RAM's faster, and but like with the clocking speeds and what the custom stuff they do in the back end, and Microsoft doing their partitioned OS, you could say that it's very hard to know how different they're going to be. They are basically the same. And they're basically PCs, which is great for developers because that's the easiest thing to develop for.
Yeah.
So everything else seems to have been based on kind of ethics rather than hardware. They've both got pretty decent hardware. I think we're all kind of comfortable with that. So it's kind of the use of it. They both, PlayStation have removed the camera to bring the price down.
Yeah.
But the problem with that is we're back to with PlayStation, we are back to the last generation of what happened with Kinect and with the iToy with PlayStation before, is the fact that if the camera isn't packaged in, developers don't seem to code for it. Because they can't guarantee that everyone that has the console has it, which is is a requirement they need kind of to know. Otherwise they're not going to make it because it won't have as big an audience. So although there's a lot of kind of feedback and kind of criticism of Kinect, the fact that it's packaged in means the kind of games will evolve and the innovative ideas behind it will have space to breathe.
So the problem with the bad feedback that you'd get, though, is that people actually haven't tried the new Kinect, and the new Kinect is much, much better. I mean, as you would hope. I mean, it's got better latency, it can pick up more people in front of it, it's got bigger range, it can see you in the dark, it can see pressure points if you're putting pressure on certain parts of your limbs, it can monitor your face, it can see your engagement, it can monitor your heart rate, It can fly. No, it can't fly. But it's a really impressive piece of kit, not just as an interface for a gaming device, but also for an information collector that can build a bespoke video game experience that is tailor-made to you. And I think that that's amazing. I think that's one of its, one of the best features of the new Xbox One. If it's part of the package, developers will develop for it, and the games will get better and better and stronger and stronger.
Do you think the price difference is going to make a big deal? Obviously, it all seems to be going PlayStation's way in terms of pre-orders, which everyone now seems to judge as the kind of the grand scheme of things. But as soon as they did the U-turn on the DRM and the second-hand games always online, Xbox shot ahead of PlayStation again on the pre-orders, regardless of price. So, is price a differentiator for you?
No, I don't think too much of it, because the fact of the matter is, like you said, the camera's not included. And let's say you want the camera and you want an extra controller. Well, you're now already adding costs to your initial purchase that will probably jack it up to where the Xbox One is. With the Xbox One, you get that stuff bundled. So you take that cost, and all of a sudden, the competition is neck and neck.
I think we can all agree. Well, we can agree certainly. Whether people at home will. But we can agree that the Xbox 360 controller is kind of the ultimate current gen controller, and the One has kind of evolved that. And and the most particular thing you can point out, as well as the many things it does well, is the rumble triggers, which I think are genuinely quite exciting. I mean, I think only Forza 5 is really using them properly at the moment for demo purposes. So
and it really is using them.
I mean, you feel kind of acceleration through your fingers, through the trigger. You feel like kinks in the road. You feel bumps. It just adds to this kind of immersion.
Sony's new PS4 DualShock's pretty cool as well. I mean, one of the things I really enjoyed was looking at a demo at the PS4 event in town, where they showed you this. There was a screen demo where essentially you could use the touchpad to flick robots out of your controller onto the screen, and then pull them all back into your controller, and then that you could feel the weight of the DualShock there as you rolled the controller from side to side, and it felt like there were actually things tumbling around inside your controller.
Yeah, it's neat.
And you given the talent that is rampant throughout the video games industry, I'm really interested to see what loads and loads of people do with that kind of that sense of immediacy that both these controllers have now.
I think the big thing that PlayStation has got, which again is that they're kind of the big story behind it, and is completely like in this day and age, you know, the growth of indies over the last year, you know, like kind of Journey and The Walking Dead sweeping awards and stuff, is the fact that how open they are to developers. You know, like you can self-publish on the PlayStation, which you can't on Microsoft. You need a publisher, and that is proving a real sticking point with developers. So even though Microsoft would appear to have the big name exclusives because you know they have the money to spend on those big name exclusives, PlayStation's playing a very clever game by going after developers to getting a real swell of support and getting a lot of games on there. You know, you kind of imagine that although the kind of maybe the exclusives at this point aren't probably the most exciting, they will have a large supply of very good games, very easily ported over.
I have to say, as a consumer though, the Sony PlayStation 4 does look like the sleeker of the two.
Absolutely.
The more appealing to the eye.
Yeah.
I mean, I have quite glibly said that the PS4 looks like the Xbox One in a wind tunnel, but you know, someone said to me, "Well, what is it? What's the color of it?" I said, "It's off-color brown." Oh, my favorite color. And it is. I mean, the thing is that they launched a brand new Xbox 360 at Microsoft's keynote. I don't know who's buying that, but that was to bring their designs, the design philosophy, I think, more in line with the Xbox One. And while I'm really looking forward to a lot of games on the Xbox One, and I think that a lot of what it does is incredibly impressive, it's an eyesore.
It is big.
Yeah.
When you see it next to the PS4, you know, we've had a PS4 in the studio today. It is very sleek.
Yeah.
It's very kind of that kind of futuristic look that you kind of thought games consoles would look like when you were 5.
Yeah.
It has that kind of real kind of angles to it, you know, the kind of part matte, part gloss, fingerprint attracting stuff that Sony always put on their products, but you know, looks kind of futuristic. I really like it. I really like the PS4. It sits very flush, standing up or flat.
The PS4, when you compare it to its forebears, you know, looks vastly different.
The functionality of them hasn't changed that much. I mean, I think this is the biggest problem they're going to have, is that the PlayStation and the Xbox, the current ones, 360 and the 3, they're both completely connected multimedia units that play, you know, saying like Xbox plays 50% now is about entertainment and not about games. So that's why the always online stuff was brought in, was because that is the significant next gen progression. And was the online connection and the cloud powering, which we haven't really touched on yet.
Yeah.
But that's another thing that they've taken always online away. But if they're opening up cloud processing for developers to add into their games, you will need to be online to play that.
I kind of felt that, you know, a 24-hour DRM ping was a little bit intrusive, but it was something that at the end of the day I would have put up with for an Xbox One anyway. I mean, I can't remember the last time I booted up my console and did not connect online. Can you?
No.
All right?
No.
And so like, it was kind of weird to me that everyone was up in arms about it. But then again, I could also see on the other side of the coin, if you live in an area which doesn't have great, you know, internet infrastructure, if you can't get online, you don't check in with someone a company you bought your console from, you're not allowed to play any games on it.
So I think that was the kind of the strangeness, wasn't it? It was the fact that it wouldn't work if you weren't online.
Yeah. Well, I mean, this is the other thing that I find quite interesting, which is because Sony made a big deal about coming out with, we don't have any DRM at all, and you're sitting there going, but hang on, you do have firmware updates, and you need to be connected online or connected to a device to have those firmware updates.
Yeah.
And if you buy The Last of Us, their new sort of PS3 exclusive, and you take it home and you don't have the firmware to play it, you have bought yourself a coaster. For me, I was just a little bit disappointed that, you know, the amazing kind of game lineup that Microsoft showcased at their E3 keynote just went straight out the window. That's the one area where I think Microsoft kind of came out in front, because they showed Metal Gear Solid: The Phantom Pain.
Yes.
And then they went on to show, I think it was 14 exclusive games?
It was all games, wasn't it?
Yeah, but they were all exclusive. That was the point. Halo's exclusive, Titanfall's exclusive.
I'm not sure putting a big sign for Halo up and saying we've got a Halo game coming out next year is much. Obviously, Halo's exclusive because Microsoft make it, but I mean, it was a CGI trailer. They had no game there. It was literally like a holding shot for that. They opened Metal Gear Solid, which isn't an exclusive. Titanfall, which I think looks the most exciting exclusive, is a Windows platform exclusive, isn't it? It's a Microsoft exclusive, so it's on 360 and PC as well.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I would imagine we'll end up at PlayStation at some point.
One of the things that should be pointed out as this generation comes to a close is that Sony's got loads of exclusives, and you know, they aren't all casual exclusives. I mean, they got Beyond coming out. They just recently had The Last of Us, you know, and you know, one of the things that I really liked the look of at the Sony keynote was The Order.
Yeah.
You know, which
Yeah.
I'd love to play. Steampunk in London ticks all of my boxes.
Yeah.
But if I remember correctly from the Microsoft keynote, even though a lot of the keynote were a bunch of trailers, those trailers are all for games that are exclusive to Microsoft's platform.
Well, I find it fascinating coming out of E3, a lot of best of E3s, obviously Titanfall won most of them, I think, for a game that nobody played. I find that kind of quite fascinating because obviously we did play a lot of games, but most of the next-gen games weren't playable. So obviously at PlayStation there was Killzone, which is Killzone.
Yep.
You know, if you like Killzone, you'll probably like this. If you don't, you probably won't. Drive Club is a good fun racer that doesn't look at the moment quite as good as we expected it to.
Right.
And for me, Gran Turismo 6 on the PS3 looked like much better.
Yeah.
But that is one of the last games on a old generation, whereas the first game's going to take developers a while to get used to it. You know, Knack was fun, but you know, I think someone in the office rather cruelly said it's like the cameo of the 360 launch. It's like that kind of knock-around family first wave title that is fine, but you kind of probably won't remember it in 6 months.
Yeah.
And the most exciting looking one, Infamous Second Son, wasn't playable.
Yeah.
So, and then from the Xbox point of view, you had Forza, which looks amazing.
Yeah.
And played well.
Yes, it played extraordinarily well. And, you know, in the one demo that they showed us, you know, one of the things that really attracted me to it, and it sounds weird talking about a motor car game, was the soundtrack, which apparently was built by people over at Lucasfilm, I think.
Right.
And it actually reacts to what you're doing in the game. So, you know, if you're surging towards the front of the pack, these huge orchestral swells come up. You know, when you're in the menu screen, it's absolutely sublime. I'd actually buy that game just to have it playing in the background as it did the housework.
But did you understand what Drivatar was?
Yeah, okay. Now, if I understand this correctly, Drivatar is essentially your profile, which becomes virtual. The more you play the game, the better your Drivatar becomes, the more information that the game works out about your style of play, how you drive, what sort of cars you drive. You know, are you an aggressive driver? Do you shunt other drivers into the wall? Are you very, very particular about sticking to the rules? And what happens is a virtual sort of Drivatar of your playing style emerges, and then it can kind of grind away online while you're not playing it. And it does sound like the game playing itself, and you think, well, what's the point of that? But the point is, your Drivatar is only as good as you're going to be. So if you want it to be any good, you're going to have to sink some serious time into Forza.
And the AI of computer will be informed by other people's drivers.
Yeah.
That's kind of the idea, isn't
Yeah.
it? So it makes it seem more... The AI is more realistic because it's being informed by real people. I mean, it just... Again, it's that kind of stuff, which is you kind of... You know, you need the online collection to happen. And I kind of think, again, it's kind of being lost.
Well, you got Forza, and then you also had Rise,
Yes.
which basically is Call of Duty Rome.
Yes.
Yes.
Button bashy quick time eventy.
Yeah, well, kind of. I mean, you know... the reason I said it was Call of Duty is because, like, the
storming beaches.
Yeah, storming beaches and, you know, blowing up ships behind you and, come on, men, let's get them. But, you know, some context would be nice to what you're doing. I'm a bit of a history buff, so I was slightly irritated to hear that they're just making an amalgamation of all of Rome rather than actually sticking in a particular specific... I know that makes me a nerd. Into a specific time in history. I'll tell you what looked really, really good was Project Spark.
Yeah.
Which essentially looks like an expanded version of what Little Big Planet offered on the PS3, except in this instance you're building whole worlds for you and your friends and other players to run around in, which are kind of, it's almost like build your own Fable from the looks of things.
Yeah, all with your voice through Kinect, which is, again, a fascinating use of technology, which I kind of, again, it seems to have been lost in the messaging.
Yeah. To me, right now, it's just too close to call. We've had hands-on with both of them. But until we are actually at home with a selection of games and all the time in the world to play them, and you know the services that are being promised or that are in the pipeline or that we're just theorizing around at this point are all connected, you don't really know what you're going to get. You don't really know what the full PS4 or the full Xbox One experience is going to be. We've just seen a taster of it. But you know, I think it's going to be a good Christmas.
I think a lot of people are they're calling it far too early. I think you're right. I think there's still so much more to be revealed. As the U-turn has shown, there's still so much more that can be changed.
Yeah.
But I still think in the kind of the hearts and minds of people, it still seems like PlayStation is kind of ahead.
Yeah,
it'd be interesting to see whether that turns into sales, or whether that's just kind of internet hyperbole.
It's a long, long time till Christmas, and a lot can happen in that time. But what would you say is the game you're most looking forward to playing?
Ubisoft stuff. just really
Yeah.
impressed me. So for me, I mean, but in the Division, which is one of the things we were talking about, the Division
That
doesn't
looks
come out until
amazing.
Christmas 2014. So I think this is the problem, is that whether people will be as in a rush. Obviously at T3 we love tech early, and we were read by a lot of early adopters, and we would hope that a lot of our readers will kind of like be well up on that. I think it can be a harder sell than it has been in the past for people to upgrade, because I think the current gen systems still have so much more to come. I mean, GTA 5 isn't coming out on next gen, it's only coming on current gen. Batman Arkham Origins is only current gen, I think. Watch Dogs comes out before on current gen.
Well, actually, if you look at
Beyond is only on PS3.
Look at the next 6 months. The final last gasp of this next generation may actually slow the sales of the next generation. Watch Dogs, Splinter Cell, Grand Theft Auto 5, Saints Row 4, Call of Duty Ghosts, Battlefield 4, Assassin's Creed, Black Flag, all of these amazing titles, all of them available on current gen.
That's it for now. Thanks for listening to us rant at each other about E3 and all things gaming. Hope you enjoyed it, and keep your eyes peeled to t3.com for all the latest updates. We're sure this won't be the last thing we have to say.
Bye.